What if that quiet worry that you keep pushing to the back of your mind, you know, the one that shows up when your parent forgets something or they stumble or they say something that just kind of makes you pause? What if that quiet worry wasn't actually anxiety, but it was actually information? So, this is episode 3 of the series, and we're going to go kind of deep into one specific type of caregiver. And you might not even call yourself a caregiver yet, but it could very well be coming. And that's exactly why I want to talk to you today. So if you came here from one of my shorts that talked about the Submarine Sandwich caregiver, I'm so glad you found me. And these full videos have a lot more information to share with you. So I am glad that you are here. So if this is your first time in the series, I'm going to link episode 2 down in the description. And that one is about the traditional sandwich generation caregiver. So you can always go back and have a look. It's a great place for you to start. But right now, I want to talk about the Submarine Sandwich caregiver. All right, so you are moving right below the waterline of caregiving. You're not caregiving yet, but you can kind of see it on the horizon. You have the hints that sometime in your future, you are going to be a caregiver for your loved one, for your parent. And today I want to help you understand what that means that you're having these feelings. And I'm going to actually help you understand what you can do about those feelings in preparation. Let me paint a picture for you. And I want you to listen to this really carefully. And I want you to see what portions of it actually connect with you. Okay, so you're probably in your 30s or 40s, maybe your 50s, and you have a full life. You work, you got a job, maybe it's your career, you have a relationship, you might have your children, and things are really kind of building. And then there's your parents, and they might be in their 60s or their 70s, and they're still mostly independent. They're living their own lives and they're still making you laugh, but something with them has shifted, something small. Maybe your parent has mentioned that they fell, and then they didn't tell you right away. Or maybe they have forgotten something that you absolutely believe that they should know and that they should remember. Maybe you visited their house and something just seemed off. You couldn't put your finger on it, but something just felt different, felt a little strange. Or maybe one of your siblings just kind of said something to you in passing about your parents and it kind of stuck with you. And whatever it was, it's kind of landed with you and you're still thinking about it, right? And now there's kind of like a feeling of worry about you. It's subtle, it's back there in the back of your head, but it comes up every now and then, and you're beginning to wonder, what actually is happening here? What is it going on? And you can't quite shut it off. So now there's sort of this hum of worry in the background, right? It's back there in the back of your brain. You might not think about it all the time. It doesn't keep you up every night, but there's something there that is just kind of nagging at you a little bit, and you can't quite turn it off. So here's what I want to address directly, because I hear this from a lot of Submarine Sandwich caregivers, right? You don't feel like you have the right to stress yet, right? Because nothing has officially happened. Even though this little nagging is at you, no one's in crisis, nothing has happened. So why are you feeling this nagging feeling? Why does it feel like something could be wrong or is about to go wrong? So I want you to know something. You are not overreacting. You are not being dramatic. You're actually paying attention to something that is real. And that attention is probably that gut feeling that you have is one of the earliest warning signs that a caregiver can have that something is happening, that something is changing within your parent. And it really is an important warning system sign. So don't ignore it. So the submarine sandwich caregiver is usually carrying this feeling themselves alone, right? They haven't mentioned it to any friends because what could you actually mention? I mean, nothing has happened, right? You can't pinpoint something. And you certainly haven't mentioned it to your siblings because you wouldn't want to start anything. And you haven't talked to your parents and had the conversation about their own plans for their future, things that they might be afraid of, things that they might be planning for, because having that conversation would admit that there is actually something wrong. So there it stays with you just under the surface, moving sort of towards something that you're not even sure how to name it. So here's what I know about this season, this caregiving on the horizon, and why it matters more than people actually realize. Your biggest challenge right now is not the logistics, and it's not the caregiving at this point. Your biggest challenge is between the now and the then that will become the caregiving. What do we do within the space, or what don't we do within the space, will actually impact our future as caregivers. So the system that we live in, it doesn't really prepare us for this situation. You know, nobody sits us down and says, okay, here are the things that you should be looking for, mostly because everybody is different. And, you know, nobody says, okay, here's how you have the conversation to find out what your parents' wishes are before everybody gets all upset in a crisis, right? When things are calm, we don't ever have that conversation when things are calm. And nobody tells you, here's how you find out what they want before you are in a crisis, standing in the emergency room hallway as you're being told you have to make a decision about your parents. You have no foundation, you have no background. We're at a point where the decision has to be made. Nobody teaches us that. Nobody tells us that's what our future could be. So what do? We wait. And we hope that everything is going to be okay, and everything can go along and be okay for a while. And then something happens. There's a crisis of some sort. And we realize that I'm not ready for this, right? I don't know what to do. I don't know what questions to ask. I don't know who to ask. I don't know where to find the answers. I don't even know what's right. And that moment, that unprepared moment that we find ourselves in, is where so much of the stress actually begins. It's not in the caregiving, the physical taking care of your loved one. It's arriving at caregiving and not having a foundation so that you can build confidence. And the hardest part, when you arrive unprepared, is the first thing that comes to mind is the guilt of, well, I should have known, or I should have asked, or I could have found that information. And then you find yourself standing there having to make decisions before you're really prepared to do it. And I want to prevent that guilt from ever happening to you. So let me ask you something. Have you had the conversation with your parent? Have you asked them what they foresee for their future and what they want? Have you asked them what plans they already have? Have you asked them what they're fearful of? That's like a tough conversation That's a big question. And you might say to yourself, oh, that's a door that I don't want to open because I think once I open it, I can't close it. But that conversation is actually your key to caregiving with confidence. Because what they tell you, you can use as a guide as you move forward with them. Having that conversation can actually be one of the most loving things that you can do for them, and one of the best confidence builders that you can do for yourself. So let me give you something concrete right now. I know some of you might be thinking, well, how do I know my gut feeling are actually true? Like that this is a valid emotion to be feeling. Well, I want to give you 3 sort of signs that you can look for to know if caregiving is actually on the horizon, and if you can start some preparation quietly yourself. So the first sign that you could look for is when small things don't add up. So you've been noticing things, maybe it is a forgotten bill that goes unpaid, and they're complaining about getting a notice, a late notice. Maybe it's a missed appointment and they're saying, well, somebody didn't give them the right time. When they got there, they said they didn't have an appointment for them. Or maybe like a comment and conversation comes out of left field and you're like, what? How did we get there? Right? Individually, these are all just little things that happen. But when you put them together, because they're happening more frequently, now our gut is saying, hey, there's some kind of a pattern happening here. And you don't really know how to name it or even what to name it or if you should name it, but you're noticing these sort of little inconsistencies, and they're kind of a red flag for you. The second sign is that you're managing your worry in isolation. So do you find yourself, 11 o'clock at night, Googling what are the signs of dementia, or, what is normal aging? What does it look like? And then you find yourself closing the tab because you don't want anybody else to see it. You're doing this research quietly because your gut feeling says that you need to have some answers, but you're not ready to share it yet with other people. And that's okay, but that research itself, it deserves to have a real home. It deserves to have a conversation. It's not just a tab that you should click off of and leave in the dark. The third sign is that your parents' decisions are starting to matter to you. So your parents might be making all of their own decisions, right? And that is fine, and you wouldn't have it any other way. But you're starting to notice that the decisions that they are making are kind of like hitting up on your life a little bit. Like, let me give you an example. Let's say they have a health concern, right? And, they're kind of not taking care of it. They're sort of pushing it aside. They're not paying any attention to it. And then suddenly you get a call that they're in the emergency room and they need somebody to come pick them up. Or, let's go back to that idea that they haven't paid a bill, right? And now you're spending time helping them look on the kitchen table and in the living room. You're looking for the bill that they supposedly have missed, but they swear that they have paid it, even though they have a late notice, right? These decisions or indecisions that they're making, suddenly they come in and they affect your life. It's almost like, you're batting backup, right? Their living situation itself. Are you finding that you can't just pick them up anymore to go shopping or go out to dinner? Now you're finding that you have to go to the door and you have to help them down the steps, right? These are all little signs that are pointing toward this caregiving on the horizon, right? Pointing toward the fact that you are a submarine sandwich caregiver. It's all there under the water, but no major crisis has happened yet. So if any of this is resonating with you, this is the place that you want to be, because I have more videos coming up that are going to get even more in depth to help you. The most important thing that I want you to know is this gut feeling that you have, this caregiving on the horizon. It's not a crisis. And that in itself is actually a gift, right? Even though you're questioning yourself, the fact that your spidey senses are saying, maybe we should pay a little bit more attention here, is providing you this window to help you sort of get ducks in a row. I like to call it filling your bag of tricks for what could happen in the future. It is so much easier to make hard decisions in the time of crisis if you've already thought out those decisions when things were calm. Just let me tell you what I've seen with working with clients on both sides of this fence. That client who is filling their bag of tricks, when the crisis arises, they have at least some type of a foundation to pull information from. Whether, however perfect or imperfectly they've collected information, they at least have a basis. But for the caregiver who suddenly becomes a caregiver overnight because they didn't go with their gut feeling, they haven't done any of the research and filling their bag of tricks, now everything they hear and every decision that they're being asked to make is something that is brand new. They don't know where to find documents that they might need. They don't know the wishes of their loved one. They don't even know where to go looking for things, and they begin to completely doubt themselves in knowing what is right or what is wrong in that particular time of crisis. The danger of waiting and not going with our gut feelings to just open up the conversation is that we lose that ability to speak with our parents and know their wishes before all the extra emotions get in there. And I do have a video that talks about starting hard conversations and the fact that it's not just one day you're going to have this conversation. This is collecting information over time. And if you are a person who's a caregiver on the horizon, take advantage of having that time now and filling your bag of tricks, not just with resources to help you, but with that valuable information that comes directly from your parent, so you know their wishes. Because when things get crazy in a crisis, standing in an emergency room at midnight and they say, we're sorry, your loved one has a broken hip and they can't go back home, you have some place to start and say, okay, let's do this, right? So what do we do in this window? Well, we gather our resources. And that is something that I put in together in what I call my care map. And this is sort of a framework to help you gather this information, not in an overwhelmed, emotional kind of way, but in a really strategic framework that is manageable for you and manageable for your loved one when it is appropriate. It's the starting point that you have to start gathering the information. And I have it broken down into 4 parts. And the first part is the C in care, and it is the conversation. It's what we've been talking about here. It's that part of finding out what their wants are, what they project for the future for themselves. And, inside my membership where I do all of this, I have this wonderful survey that I call Future Possibilities. And it really brings up some really good questions to have a conversation about. And I teach you how to have that conversation so it's not so jarring, but you can really get some really good information out of it. The A in the care map is the awareness. It means you actually listening and paying attention when they say that they've gone to the doctors. And you say, oh, who is your doctor? Where do you see them? Right? And then you learn, where do they keep all of their medical information in case you would need to get it sometime. My father held on very tight to medical information as well as financial information, and it was a no-no to ever really talk about it until He found himself in the hospital and then later in rehab, and he couldn't get his hands on his own material, so he had to send somebody else to do it. That would have been me, right? And then it was like, oh, third drawer down in the right, and the key is, all of this smoke and mirrors to get the information that, I could have asked for early on and just known where to look for it. And not while he was laying in with oxygen in a rehab hospital, right? So the R or the A is that awareness. The R is the relationships, right? This is talking to your parents, but also talking to your siblings, also talking to your own partner to know some things are going on with my parents. We might have to be on board here for some things. And the last part is the E, and that is the expectations. What are your expectations as a caregiver? What does it look like? How much time can you realistically spend? Not some guilt that's saying to you should do this. You should give up your job. You should take care of them. You should do this. But what realistic for you in your heart, in your caregiver's heart, can you give to care for your parent? And please understand, and many people don't understand this, finding care is your job as a caregiver. Whether you personally provide the care is no different than if you get somebody else to provide the care, right? But you're still the decision maker as the key caregiver for your loved one. So it doesn't mean you have to do it all. It means you're collecting your bag of tricks to see who else is part of this care team, or I like to call it a care circle that I go over with my clients. So since the C in the care map is a conversation, here's one actionable thing you could start for yourself. And you could go about this two different ways. So the next time you talk to your parent, whether it be, on the phone or in person or whatever, you can say something to them like, hey, I've just been thinking about all of us and thinking about the future, and, not that anything is wrong, but I love you and I want to find out some information about the things that matter to you, for your future and for my future. Can we talk about it sometime? And you can schedule a time, or if it's appropriate, you can talk about it then. Now, another way to approach it, if you think that might be too prickly for your loved one, another way to approach it is when something happens to somebody that you mutually know, right? So it could be an older neighbor, it could be an older relative. And let's say they are moved into, they decide to move to senior living. And you can take that opportunity, and the next time you talk to your parents, you can say, hey, I see John and Joyce, they moved into the senior living. What do you think about that? Have you had a chance to see their apartment? What are they saying about it? Have you heard? Who helped them move? Right? And then build the questions and have the conversations. And by having that conversation with them, you can see their positives and negatives about their friends. And that tells you something about how they're feeling and could consider themselves in that situation in the future. And their opinion could change. They could very quickly go, oh, I would never do anything like that. But then you could arrange a visit for them to go see John and Joyce and their new place. And then they could have the conversation with your loved one. And you could hear what they're thinking from their friend's perspective. You might be very surprised to know that your parents are already having some of these thoughts for themselves. Now, that's not every parent. Some live in complete denial. But deep down, they have to be thinking about their future. You might find that opening the conversation is exactly what they need and exactly what they want. And they don't know how to open the conversation. Maybe they're afraid to talk to you about it. So taking that first step, the first C in care, could be the thing that really opens things up for you. So if you are a Submarine Sandwich generation caregiver, and you want more than just this framework, this sort of care map idea, and if you want somebody to actually walk through this with you, then I invite you to look into my Caregivers Thriving membership. This membership has a specific track for people just like you, where you can sense the caregiving is on the horizon, but you're not really sure what to do. If you're that person that knows you should be prepared, or you're a person who just likes to be prepared, this is such a great thing for you. So this isn't for people who are already overwhelmed. I mean, this particular track isn't for people who are already overwhelmed. This is for us to sort of help you get your ducks in a row, to build this wonderful foundation that will make caregiving in the future for you so much easier. And I walk through with you in your specific situation how you can best build your foundation for caring for your loved one. So the link to this is in the description, and you can learn more information if that sounds good to you. And if you're not ready yet, that's perfectly fine too. Keep coming back to this series on the sandwich generation caregiver, and maybe one of the other types might suit you better, resonate with you more. So in the comments below, I want you to tell me, when was the moment when you realized that caregiving was on the horizon, that you could see it coming? Please tell me about it. I love to hear your experiences, and I love to give you feedback. All right, my friends, if you are a sandwich generation caregiver, I want you to hear this one more time before we go. You're not overreacting. You are not being too dramatic. What you're feeling, what you're sensing is actually a very good, healthy gut feeling that you can actually act on. You can build your bag of tricks that can help you in the future. So the next time in the Sandwich Generation series, we are going to talk about the caregiver that is going completely solo. They have no siblings. They have no partner. They are dealing with no backup. And we're going to find out what they have facing them. And this one I feel very strongly about. And if you haven't seen episode 2 yet about the traditional sandwich caregiver, make sure you go back and have a look at that. The link is down below. So keep watching. Make sure you subscribe so you can catch the next episode of this series. Thanks so much. Remember, no one should walk this journey alone.